Hey guys, my name is Kai, and TFT Summit happened just a little less than a week ago, and if you don't even know what it is, or if you missed out on it, I highly recommend checking out the VODs that are still available over on Twitch, because it is easily one of the coolest and best events in TFT history, in my own opinion. Summit, for those of you who don't know, was an organized event hosted by Riot Games, where they got a bunch of content creators as well as high-level players, which, by the way, everybody there was a high-level player, but they all got to participate in some very high-level in-houses, as well as participate in some questionable events. But shout out to Froden and the team for organizing all of TFT Summit. It was such a wonderful event. It was so awesome, and I really hope that we get to see more of these in the future, because Summit is easily one of the coolest events that TFT currently has. But out of all of the events of TFT Summit, the most interesting and fun thing for me was all the tidbits of really niche information about TFT that I had no idea about until post-Summit. Especially for veteran players, or even just high elo players who haven't played the game for very long like myself. This list contains a bunch of interesting and niche tech that I had no idea about until post-Summit. So without further ado, here's all the interesting and niche tech that we found out through day one of Summit. Number one is early game nilah carry.
What about the nilah stack?
I mean, I've just heard a lot of people say that nilah carry with these, like for example, with these items as a transition unit is really good.
Yes, sure.
I have never actually done it, so.
I mean, this unit's just really good in general. Really good with these items, really good with tank items.
She's item flexible. Probably one of the better TG item holders as well.
This one was a bit surprising for me just because it never really clicked in my head, but definitely something to consider for your early game openers. Number two, the hotly debated orb tech. This one was very controversial for a long time.
But basically, he had that Vi inside the orb since 2-1. He got it from the underground. He just got a second Vi in his shop. He just collected the
Again, I feel like your whole shtick today is going to be tell lies and get people to believe them, because that's not how it works.
Wait, what's not how it works?
No.
Wait, what's not how it works?
I don't know that, but if you say no, look,
wait, hold on.
More. Are you saying that if it's once it's in the box, it's already out of the pool regardless? Okay, so in other words, leaving it on the field does nothing.
So this is what's being argued inside of the clip. Solus leaves the gray orb on the floor since 2-1, and this is because the orb contains a Vi, which he got from Underground Soul, which was his augment choice. There's been a lot of debate in the community as to whether or not it's correct to pick up the orb, and the reason why is because of the limited number of copies of a unit inside of the pool. The original thought is this: you leave the orb on the ground. By doing so, it does not actually take a unit out of the pool, so you actually have a higher probability of finding said unit when you start rolling and looking for it in your shop. Mortdog, who is the lead developer of TFT, is arguing that this does not work and that the orb already pulls the unit out of the pool, so it does not actually increase your odds of finding said unit. But here's the funny thing. Aniko actually brings up a very funny point.
Hold on.
Okay.
Did you change that? Because I know for a fact that you said that it was the opposite. And I know that because you called it word for word a really stupid min-max.
Yes, I heard that.
A min-max is a min-max.
I do remember that.
I do remember this conversation. Wait, so what is it, Mort?
And guess what? It turns out he was right. Mortdog later posts on Twitter a couple days later saying the following: in order to remain trustworthy, I think it's important to admit when I'm wrong, so let me do that. At Summit, we were debating when champions are pulled from orbs that come from augments. I looked into it last night and I was incorrect. The orb does in fact pull the champion from the pool the moment you open it and not before. This means there is an extremely small micro optimization in waiting to open the orb until you need it. This is more true the higher cost the unit. However, be warned, this does mean it's possible to open the orb, have none left in the pool, and get gold instead. This is incredibly niche and unlikely, but it is how it works right now. So yes, while it is true that it is in fact a stupid min-max, in the wise words of Aniko, a min-max is a min-max. Number three, mana saving tech on shojin.
So what this is and you can thank Ken for this. He put a lot of hard work into this. Okay. So the way shojin works is if the auto attack that would have procced the mana is the one that also makes you reach the cap, it's saved. And so it'll come after the next spell.
This could be a little difficult to comprehend at first, so let me explain. Every unit will generate 10 mana per auto. Let's say a unit autos and procs shojin, but at the same time that auto is what gives the unit their ability to cast. So it's possible, at least back then, that the 20 mana that would have procced from shojin gets lost because it would have procced the same time as the ability. But what Mort is saying is that that 20 mana is actually preserved and given on the next round. So just to give you an example, Vayne is a really good shojin user, and the reason why is because her mana cost is 30. Why is 30 important? Well, because when Vayne autos 3 times, she's able to cast her ability. But if she has shojin, the 20 mana that is generated from shojin gets saved and is given to Vayne after she procs her spell. This means that with the Vayne with shojin, she will auto, auto, cast her spell, gain 20 mana from the shojin, from the mana that was saved, and then she'll auto and then automatically cast her ability again. But what this means is that there are actually units who use shojin pretty inefficiently. So there are units like Soraka, for example, who are actually really, really bad shojin users because her mana pool is 40. Well, why does that work? Well, again, Soraka will auto, and then on the third auto, she'll proc shojin, but she'll only get 10 mana back. The leftover 10 does not get saved, and she's actually only garnering 10 mana every time that she procs her shojin. So she'll auto, proc shojin, gain 10 mana, cast, but loses 10 mana. It's inefficient. But this also means one more thing. 40 mana units actually now have a very interesting BIS compatibility with both having blue buff and shojin. They get to keep proccing very, very quickly. This also means that blue battery and shojin work very well in conjunction with one another when it comes to units like Sona and Soraka, who again have 40 mana. I'll probably do a video that is a little more in depth when it comes to itemizations a little later on. Number 4. Augment synergies. I'm going to show you a clip of Void Sin's perspective and tell me what would you take in this scenario. So, which augment would you pick in that scenario? Do you have an answer? Well, let's see if you're correct. I'm going to play the clip back again, and this time, I'm going to play with the original audio.
So sweaty for this event that every time I've asked you or Dipso a question, I get obfuscation, vague answer.
Whoa, he got double trouble and build different
Double trouble build diff is a great combo.
If you're not ripping this,
Asa invented
Nah.
The reason why the casters are freaking out over the fact that Void Sin chose Thrill instead of Double Trouble is because Double Trouble and Build Different, when you think about it, work very, very well in conjunction with one another. But instead, Void Sin chose to take Thrill, which is easily one of the biggest blunders of the entire tourney. Arguably a bigger blunder than KIYOON dying to Krugs.
There are just still games that nobody's ever played.
yes.
KIYOON might be
What's going on here? Losing to Krugs? Who's losing to Krugs?
KIYOON.
KIYOON? Wait, no, KIYOON. Go to his POV. Oh no!
Oh, I think. Wait.
No, he's good.
Is
He's good.
Is he?
Oh.
He's good.
Overtime?
It's a BT diff.
Overtime?
He might not be good.
He
might not be good. He might not be good.
And Mort shows up. Mort with the standing ovation. Excellent job, KIYOON.
There are a lot of augment synergies that work very well in conjunction with one another, and it's very important to keep those in mind when trying to pick your augments. Just to give you guys a couple extra examples, any healing augment with first aid kit. Very strong synergy. Why spending and golden ticket, which by the way, I have a video where I actually hit that synergy, and I highly recommend going check it out because I hit Viego 3 and Z3 in that game. Pretty freaking cool. Boxing lessons, which is one of Vi's hero augments, as well as electrocharge. And there's plenty more, but those are the ones that came to me off the top of my head. And speaking of augments, number 5, electrocharge.
Electrocharge is really good right now.
Why is that?
I think it's because there's just a lot of like high health. Like people are building good tanks and that can proc a lot, and getting that extra secondary damage is really good.
You didn't increase the numbers, right? Is the numbers the same?
No, the numbers are the same, but everyone's lower health.
Yeah.
And so everyone being able to take basically a higher percentage of their health.
Pretty self-explanatory clip. Let's move on. Number 6, Ashe's flexibility.
Ashley's pretty lit.
Yes, Ashley's very, very good.
Ashley's really strong. Featherweights is pretty strong.
Also, the thing about Ashe is that she is very good without her trades.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you don't even need recon on her. Like,
Yeah, you don't need
she's so
recon,
good.
you don't need lasercorps, and like that gives her a lot of flexibility. So that's why I said when you're re-rolling Ashe and you're seeing your contestant in the lobby, you don't have to stick to the Renekton and Yasuo. You don't even have to play any other synergies.
No.
Just play Ashe 3 in frontline, and then you can level up and play anything else.
Just to reiterate the point, there are a lot of units out there who don't really need their synergies to still perform well. Sejuani 2 is probably one of the bigger examples of this, where you don't really need brawlers or lasercorps, but having a Sejuani 2 is really nice. You just get a big AoE stun and a mega tank on your front line. Not bad. Number 7, zz'rot overtime tech.
And over time, the zz'rots don't speed up. So their units like are super fast and like are just murdering your zz'rots, but your zz'rots are staying through like.
Oh, I didn't know that. I
But
thought
the Zac blobs, those things like count as champions because in overtime they just go crazy.
So yes, this one is one of those, I didn't need to know that, but now you know. There you go. Number 8, the double locket, double redemption tech.
Okay, so Ramblin was telling me that someone mentioned that locket stacking is actually kind of good if you know how to play around it.
Wait, what do you mean? No, or like, wait.
So
Locket
could you
stacking?
like explain to us? You know?
Yeah, so the theory
why
is that a lot of frontliners this set don't necessarily need items to perform well
Yeah.
if you just give them raw defensive stats like HP. In this case, shield is HP. And
Yeah.
so if you give it to like Echo, oh nice, Zach or Zhonya, like all of them, you can just give them some shield and you get a really effective frontline. And that way you can benefit off of a lot of augments that came back, like makeshift armor and things like that. And then you can just focus on frontline items that way, and it's high tempo. So it's like all these reasons combined gives you a lot of good use.
So you were telling me, Locket, we slam Locket now?
I'm saying that if you understand what you're doing, you can.
So what exactly can we learn from this? Well, not only does double locket work really well, but so does double redemption. And these sort of aura items that are able to provide these sort of raw stats towards these tanks, who again don't really need very strong defensive items in order to perform well. And I actually really enjoyed the niche tech that they talked about in here, where if you hit makeshift armor on 2-1 and you have a locket slam, you have a very, very strong opportunity to be win streaking in that lobby. Number 9 is rolling to 0 for specifically Nasus carry.
I think Nasus reroll is like the only reroll comp where you're completely fine rolling to 0 just because you have stacks on stacks and it gets
the scaling is so insane.
For sure.
Oh, that's kind of smart.
And then the faster you obviously 3-star and have items, you get more stacks.
So KIYOON actually argues that you should probably roll to 0 to make sure to try to hit the Nasus 3 as soon as possible. This is actually very contradictory to the way that you usually manage your economy when it comes to 1-cost carry comps, because normally on 3-1 you would roll down only to about 30 or 20. This is because you want to usually preserve your econ, and rolling all the way to 0 is actually pretty dangerous because it takes so long for you to rebuild your economy before you can start slow rolling again. But KIYOON argues that the payoff that you get late game by being able to 3-star your Nasus straight off the bat at 3-1 is so valuable that it is actually worth more than trying to preserve your economy. Now, is this correct? I'm not entirely sure, but it's something to definitely consider. And while they do discuss further about Nasus BIS in the clip, it's a bit ambiguous and they do kind of go back and forth for a while, so I'm just going to shorten it for you. BIS usually consists of BT Ginsu's +1. Ginsu's especially is really good because your Nasus is able to cast constantly so that he's able to get his infinite stack. Titans is okay. Asa argues that it is not that great just because he already has so much health and so much AD already. He doesn't really need the stats from it. So you can also consider items like IE as well. Number 10 is Lulu positioning.
Well, the other thing is the Lulu beam goes through the target it hits up to like 4 hexes. So if you put her in the old Vel'Koz spot, you can actually like hit 3 or 4 targets per cast.
So the way that Mort is explaining the way that Lulu's ability works is a bit odd to me, so I don't exactly understand 100%, but I'm gonna try to do my best to explain how I think it works and what I think is best. Basically, Mort is arguing that you should probably put Lulu probably second or third row because her ability, the way that it works, is that it shoots a beam through the target and can actually hit multiple units. But what I don't understand is that the way that he explains the ability, at least based off of this explanation, is that if she hits a unit that is 4 or more hexes away, her beam will not go through that unit. This means that if she hits a unit or a target that is less than 4 hexes away, her beam will keep going through that target until it reaches 4 hexes. This means you're being pretty inefficient when it comes to Lulu's ability if you decide to backline her or backcorner her. Basically, just don't backline Lulu. Number 11 is Titan Resolve Synergy with healing.
Oh, he just moves items from his Soraka.
Okay, they made Titans instead of Edge of Knight there. How do you feel about that?
I actually think Titan
Yeah, I think it's better.
It's good. Sure.
I actually played against Milk earlier today where I had Titan Zed and he had Edge of Knight Zed, and I was just getting Zed diffed every fight.
I think you have both, but I think Titans is probably like, it's always been like the units that heal up like, infinite. Titans, it's like, you know, like YUHYUH, it's like units like that. Titans have always been like really good on that.
I think this is something we all kind of knew, but it's nice to hear it being explained and just being open and clear about it. I'm going to try to shorten what they said a little bit, but basically Titans has a very strong synergy when it comes to units that heal a lot because of the effective health that you garner through using Titans Resolve. That's why units like Zed utilize Titans very well because Hacker gives so much Omnibam. The effective health that Zed has is just through the roof. Number 12 is BIS Urgot, according to Mortdog.
Also, question mark, what's BIS Urgot, man?
BIS Urgot is Hurricane, Deathblade,
Is it actually
IE.
Hurricane?
There's no way he's like serious with the aim asshole, right?
So he scales really well with AD and terrible with every other stat.
Number 13 is Zephyr's interaction with Hacker units. This one might be a little tricky, especially if you play PvE, because now you might be a little confused.
Wait, what'd you say?
Wait, you can Zephyr Hacker, right?
No, you can't Zephyr Hacker.
You can't Zephyr the Hacker.
Wait, since when?
Since always.
Since PvE.
It's like a week into PvE we took that out.
Yeah, I think they had like bugs with it.
I think Nick will try to Zephyr Hack.
It was partially bugged, but it was also like having your entire like 3 or 4 trait hacker countered by 1 item felt really bad.
Number 14 is being a little more open to itemization, specifically AD Talon.
I think a lot of people are too narrow in how they think about Talon itemization in the early game.
Yeah, AD Talon is a menace.
Yeah, it really is.
It's part of the meta in some regions. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yes, while Talon does have a lot of AP scaling, he's a very strong AP scaling. 80 Talon is not a bad choice when it comes to early 80 item holders. He's basically assassins, but just poor 80 scalings. Number 15, Zhonya's versus Edge of Night, and specifically how the cleansing works.
One thing about Edge of Night versus Zhonya's is that Edge of Night actually cleanses, which is like pretty important for a unit that heals.
Yep.
So like Zhonya's won't get rid of like the anti-heal effect when Edge of Night would, but I'm pretty sure like the item is still like fine.
So this is actually a pretty interesting distinction where Edge of Night actually cleanses, means gets rid of any negative effects on your units, unlike Zhonya's, which doesn't do that. So in some very niche case scenarios, let's say for example you're playing a unit like Soraka, which heals like crazy. If you're playing into a Zed player, you might actually be better off just itemizing an Edge of Night over a Zhonya's, so then that way, not only do you get rid of any anti-heal effects, but you also get to cleanse away from a Zed player. Number 16 is Asol's interaction with his meteors when he dies.
Do you guys like to greed Battle Mage on Asol specifically? I'm just curious.
I like it.
I like it, yeah.
I think, I was thinking about it, her putting it out of Battle Mage. I feel like it's pretty excusable. Like, A, because she didn't have time to scout, right? So she doesn't know for sure. But when Asol dies, like his meteor just disappears. So if you put him in a risky enough spot, you're actually losing like a ton of DPS for the greed.
Dish Soap does point out that yes, Asol's meteors does in fact disappear when he dies, but this may not be an intended interaction because later on in the summit, I believe on day 2, Kent does, I believe it's Kent who's the one that says that they don't think that should be an interaction because even if a unit dies, if the spell goes off, the spell should still go off. So very likely it's a bug, but at least in the meantime, that is something to keep an eye out for. Number 17 is Zed versus MF.
I think this Ashe positioning is for Zed, right?
Yeah, it's for Zed.
Yep.
I think not enough people are doing this, just positioning around Zed by putting in third row. The smart targeting on Hacker is gonna, even if it aggroes onto the third row, it's gonna always then like turn around and auto attack something that started on the fourth row.
There's something that so the MF Zed matchup is already like somewhat MF favored if you're same side. You can put MF third row, and if Zed jumps behind her, he'll always teleport right in front of her.
Yeah. Yep.
Just to make sure you guys understand how this works, let me explain. Basically, Zed will teleport to the backline and he will target the person in the fourth row, not the MF that's in the third row. So by positioning MF in the third row, what ends up happening is that Zed will cast his ult, causing him to teleport right in front of MF. And by doing so, MF will then ult on top of Zed and kill Zed. This means if you're playing into a very Zed heavy lobby, it's actually very possible you could play MF to try and counter the Zed players because of the way that this interaction works. Definitely something good to keep in mind. Number 18 is your item economy when you lose to Krugs, and unless you're KIYOON, this probably does not apply to you, but it's just good to know.
Also, the way the mechanic works, if I correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you lose to Krugs, you're still gonna get the reward anyways.
Yeah.
It's just later on.
It comes back.
Yeah. So just don't lose to
4-7.
So if you ever find yourself in a position where you lost to Krugs, don't fret, you will get those item components. It will just be later in the game and you'll still be at the same level of item economy as everybody else, assuming you don't also lose at 4-7. And number 19 is LaserCorp. And I'm probably going to make a whole video on LaserCorp because I think it's a very, very interesting tree and I really, really think there's so much to learn about it. But here is Froden talking about it.
The really cool thing about this LaserCorps is that every unit within the tree actually is capable of carrying, and depending on how you set up the items and your augments. The person that really showed me this was 60second from China because he spent an entire day playing LaserCorps all day, and every game was a different carry. It was Ashe sometimes when he's rerolling with Renekton, sometimes it's Senna, sometimes it's Yasuo with Duelist, sometimes you just play vertical with Zed and Mordekaiser. LaserCorps is a deep trade. You should explore if you haven't had a chance already.
This is something that's very, very interesting about this tree, and it's something I definitely want to make a video on later on because I think it's so cool how deep of a trait LaserCorp truly is. But just to make sure you caught that, LaserCorp, every unit in the tree has the ability to carry, except for maybe Renekton. But again, just to summarize very quickly, Ashe reroll and Renekton reroll, we've all seen that before with Laser Supers. We've seen Yasuo carry inside of a Duelist Vertical. 3-star Senna, which you don't see very often. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, this is a total aside. I just thought about this on the spot. So I don't know if it's actually any good, but there might be a sure shot supers reroll line. Yeah. So you play 3 supers and you play Sivir, Senna, Vi, and that's your level 6 board. And then you roll for Sivir 3, Vi 3, Malphite 3. And then when you go level 7, you roll for Alistar 3 and Senna 3. That way you get Aegis, Sure Shot, Brawlers, Mascot. It could be good. It could be good. This set's really cool. There's the possibilities are endless. Somebody please test that out. Let me know. Let me know if it works with like Sivir's pizza delivery, whatever. Maybe with like a Sivir augment or like a Senna augment, it could work out really well. I don't really know. Definitely something to consider though. And then obviously you have the vertical with Z2 and Mord2 with 6 LaserCorps. Again, really, really cool trait. Really, really cool comps that you can create out of it. And I will definitely definitely make a lasercorps video. It is such a cool trait. But yeah, that basically covers all of the niche tips and tech that I found during day 1. I'll definitely make a day 2, day 3, and day 4 recap video. I just need to finish rewatching all of Summit. It's like 40 hours of content. There's so much. Please, if you get a chance, please like the video if you found this helpful, and comment maybe your favorite tip or niche tech that maybe I missed, stuff like that. And hopefully I'll see you guys soon for day 2, day 3, and day 4. But until then, you can sometimes catch me on Twitch at twitch.tv/watanabe_kai. I'll leave the link down below. And that's about it. I'll see you guys in the day 2 video very soon. Take care, guys. Bye-bye. Oh, and happy climbing. Bye-bye.